Thank you, Jasper. Could you please have your camera before we can start? Members, may I request that you have your cameras and your microphones off so that we give the moment to the panelists. We'll have a Q&A session towards the end, and we do hope that we're going to have a wonderful session, a very great learning moment. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Nicodemus Muhati, and I'm an educator, and I'm here to moderate this session. Before we can start, may I request for a volunteer to just open this session with a word of prayer? A quick volunteer, kindly.
Shall we pray?
Thank you.
Dear Lord, we come before you. We bless your name. We thank you for giving us the will and the strength to be here for this meeting right now. Give us wisdom, even as we start. Be with us till the end, for we pray, trusting and believing. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a session that has been organized collaboratively by the Educators Network, again in partnership with STEM Labs Africa. So the theme for this session will be just a moment, a quick one. Our theme for tonight, ladies and gentlemen, will be fostering student engagement strategies for empowering active learners. So in our panel, we have four panelists, four discussants, and may I do a quick introduction of the profiles of each of our members of the panel. To start with, we have Mwalimu Jasper Ondimu. So Jasper Ondimu is a teacher of IB Diploma and IGCSE History. He's also a Swahili author, and he currently is teaching IGCSE Swahili. And to add on that, it's important to note that Jasper is a regular education analyst for KTN, NTV, and TV47. We welcome you very much, Jasper. And number two, we have Domitila Orori. She is a qualified and certified math and chemistry teacher with 3 years teaching experience. So she's proficient with both the British and American systems of learning. So she's passionate about impacting students' lives, change in the society. Now, we are also blessed to have Dr. Maina with us. Dr. Wagioko Maina is an educator with passion on innovative pedagogies and transformative instructional leadership. Dr. Maina is the director of the Professional Development Center with the AKDN, that is the Aga Khan Academy Development Network. So he is a Swiss-born scholar and has in education ranging from leading projects regionally, and of course that stretches to Africa, Europe, Asia, US, and Canada. So he uses his work and service as a learning platform in conducting research, and through his publications and conferences, he's able to make an impact in policy and contribute to grounded, contextualized knowledge. Dr. Maina is also a Harvard graduate scholar from the School of Education, and he had several awards, including Global Teachers Prize finalist, the Presidential Award on Leadership, and he's also among the top 100 influencers in technology in education, amongst many other achievements. Maina loves nature and being natural, blending with nature and conservation endeavors. He refers to himself as an innovative learning facilitator who serves as he learns and learns as he serves, and that is his wonderful mantra. Let me introduce Felix. Felix is an EdTech and innovation professional with immense experience in schools. He's a STEM curriculum developer and computer science educator. So he is currently the executive director of STEM Labs Africa, an organization that seeks to inspire action, transform education practices, and empower generations. Finally, we are also blessed to have a student representative, and her name is Nisi Kaiser. So Nisi Kaiser is a recent high school graduate with a bright future ahead of her. She's born in Uganda and raised in Kenya and Ghana. So she completed her high school education at Crawford International School in Kenya in 2023. So during her time in high school, Nisi was known for her critical role in the first annual Crawford Game Jam. Her remarkable grades making her the valedictorian of her class, representing and winning her school in various hackathons and science forums around the world, being a panelist in the STEM Labs Africa Teens Innovation Week 2023, being a peer mentor and giving back to her community. So she excelled both inside and outside the classroom, demonstrating a passion for computer science. She is now ready to embark on the next chapter of her educational journey and is excited to pursue an undergraduate degree in computer science. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a quick profile of the beautiful, the wonderful educators, members of the panel who are going to share very great insights. Now, let's set the road running. Because we're talking about the big agenda here, and it is student engagement. I'd like to throw this question to just student engagement matter. Why is student engagement essential for effective learning? Jasper, 2 minutes. We lost Jasper. Jasper, are you still there? Jasper, you're muted. Kindly, please unmute. You're muted.
I trust now you can hear me.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much, Mhati, for the opportunity. I'm indeed honored to be part of this particular panel. I have heard the credentials that you've read out about the other panelists, and I appear to be the lightweight here, but I do appreciate for the opportunity that you have granted me. Indeed, student engagement is very important, and generally across the world, you look at the education sector, there is a lot of invention in terms of teaching and inculcating different approaches in getting the maximum outcomes from the students. And you look at some of the developed countries, you look at China, they have really shifted methodologies in terms of impacting knowledge. It is not like, for example, here in Kenya, if you look at the training that we get in the universities and up to now that they're trying to introduce CBC, you can be able to get that there is need to be a shift in terms of how do we handle these particular learners, how do we impart the knowledge and vis-a-vis the outcomes that we get. And I could just state briefly that you look at the results that we usually get at the end of the year, and you realize that, for example, in the past 3 years, we've got around 1 million students, or 1 million candidates for that matter, getting E's. So, and we've never had a conversation as a country. What can we do to reduce the number of E's that we get? Why is it that we don't have a normal curve? Why is it that almost 75% of these students who are doing exams, KCP and KCSE for that particular case, especially KCSE, are not getting quality grades? And therefore, I love this particular subject that you've brought about learning engagement, because it is through learning engagement that we can be able to sort out some of these particular challenges that we are facing as a country. And then, should I go to how do we measure the learning engagement? How do we measure learning engagement?
Yes, please.
Yes. Now, the simple question that we need to ask ourselves is, do we need sophisticated tools to tell us that students are engaged? Or can someone just go into a class? If, for example, tomorrow I come to Mr. Muhati's class and I get in, can I do I need really sophisticated tools to know that students are engaged or the students are not engaged? And the answer is no. And there are some of the questions that we can ask ourselves and know if really the students are engaged. For example, if you enter into a class, the first question or the first observation you can make is, are the students working together in peers? Are the students active in whatever they are doing? Maybe it is a discussion, it is a science practical. Are they active in whatever that they are doing? Do the students make choices about how to approach their work? Is the teacher involving the students, or the teacher is the one who knows it all and the teacher is dictating? Do these students have a say in terms of the kind of work they are getting? Is the teacher allowing feedback from these students? And are the students also encouraged even to move around depending on the assignments that they are being given? Are the students having fun in class? Because you realize that the students spend a lot of time sitting in class or doing activities in school. So are they having fun in whatever that they are doing? Are the students using technology, if it is there in that class? And even getting into class, are those particular students having bright faces, or they look bored, or and the teacher does not really care? And you can realize that some of these things, it is very easy for you to note if there is really engagement in class. Issues to do with attendance, because you realize that once students get engaged in class by the teacher, the attendance will go up. Currently, I'm a law student, and I remember in my first year, there's a unit we were doing, matters to do with constitutional law, and every student in our class did not wish to miss the lecture of Madam Rosemary Kamathi. And why? Because she was engaging us in class, giving very interesting illustrations, and that really made us look forward to her lectures. So attendance can tell you that the students are getting engaged or they're not getting engaged, in the sense that high attendance, especially university sectors where students sometimes attend class as they wish. So you realize that where the enrollment is high, that can always tell you about that lecturer. The participation in class that I talked about, do the students complete their homework? You know, some students will wish that they complete the assignment so that they impress the teacher, or so that they do not let down the teacher in terms of that particular kind of relationship. You know, some students are so eager to finish the assignment because they love that particular subject, and they don't want to destroy the relationship they have with the teacher. How are the students in class? Are they attentive? Because attentiveness is also a sign of an engaged student. Submission of the work on time. Are they participating in co-curricular activities? And then also other basic questions like, do these students love the school? Do they love the class? Do they love the teacher? You ask.
Suleiman, could you please mute? Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes. So as I conclude, is there are some of these basic questions that we can ask ourselves. Like if you ask these students, do you love your class? Do you love your school? That can give you a rough idea if the students are really engaged with the teacher. Are they loving the learning that they're doing? And it is actually, Muhati, very sad if we, the teachers, do not get feedback from the students. Let us sometimes allow the students to rate us. You can even prepare a questionnaire and tell them, don't write your name. I want feedback in regard to how I teach, the notes I give you, the activities that we do, about your class, and that particular feedback will make you a better teacher. I think that those are my introductory remarks.
Well done, well done. Thank you very much, Jasper. It's interesting to note how you are introducing the whole thematic concern of democracy in your class and how the student voice is actually expanded versus the ideas you've actually put forward about the position and the requirements, the demands on the part of the teacher. All right, now now that you've given that kind of a background introduction.
Marty, we have lost you.
All right, sorry, I had muted myself. Okay, thank you very much, Jasper, for actually giving us some context, some background to the issue of student engagement. It's interesting to note how you're actually very silently introducing another theme on how teachers can actually introduce democracy in their classroom and how the voice of the student dominates in the discussions and making decisions on how the learning process happens. I heard you talking about the questionnaire. All right. At this point, I'd like us to now get a theoretical understanding of the whole concept of student engagement. Dr. Maina, could you share insights from psychological research about the factors that influence student engagement? 3 minutes, sir. You are muted, sir.
Thank you.
Please
Thank you
unmute.
very much. Thank you very much. First of all, we have to have clarity on what is engagement, because we can have busybody, we can have time-killing activity, and you can have conceptual engagement with the learners. So I'm going to talk in the realm of contextual engagement, whereby learners are key stakeholders in the learning process, and therefore the engagement is them to partake, involve them, have voice and choice in terms of the learning process. So there are very many, according to psychological research, there are many factors that influence student engagement. And the first one is interest and relevance. As a teacher, when you are presenting your concept, no matter how complex it is, you are a professional who can package the session in a way which is going to interest the learners and make it relevant to them. So it's how you present your lesson to make it relevant to the lives of the students so that they see that it has some meaning to them. The second one, which Jasper put very well, is an issue of voice and choice. Do they have autonomy and control in the kind of learning which you are having? Do they have a sense of ownership in the kind of work you are giving? Are you working at content level or are you working at concept level? Because when you work at concept level, you give open opportunity for them to select content which realize their content. So issue of autonomy and control have a psychological effect in terms of student engagement. The third one is the rigor and mastery. And this has to be very careful in terms of, are you challenging them conceptually so that they have an interest of overcoming the bar? They have an interest of learning because there is a challenge. There's an open-end question. There's an inquiry which they need to do. And in the process, they are going to be immersed in the process of getting that inquiry, answering that question, which is open-ended, and therefore mastering a skill. And the other one, which was also mentioned by Jasper, is the issue of clear goals. Learners are not supposed to be surprised. There needs to be a clear learning outcomes, which you are provided in good time, so they know very well that this is what we are doing and this is what we are supposed to get. And in the process, we should be able to give them constructive feedback. When you tell a learner, good, well done, you've done well, there's room for improvement, pull up your socks, that is conceptually rubbish because it does not speak to what the learner is doing. So constructive feedback is a feedback which tells the learners what they have done exactly and what they needed to do and how they can improve. The next one is social interaction. We are human beings, and as human beings, we are social human beings, and therefore we are inherently making connections. So when you allow learners to talk to each other, to ask questions, to refer to each other, to check in, it brings in a collaborative learning environment, and this boosts their positive social interaction with their peers as well as their teachers. Remember, the students have to want to learn, have to love to learn, and therefore they have to be intrinsically motivated. And this can only be steered when there is an opportunity for them to engage, not external rewards, but they have a curiosity, which is sparked by the way the lesson is organized and by the way the material is brought. So that intrinsic motivation is what drives that engagement. And then there's an issue of emotional well-being. The classroom has to be friendly. The teacher has to be inviting. The learning environment has to be safe. They feel welcomed. You have gone to schools in the morning and you have seen students walking in and you find a teacher standing at the gate with a big stick. That is a deterrent. So there must be some emotional well-being. The teacher is smiling, everybody is feeling involvement. And then the next one is novelty and variety. Teachers should not be predictable. There should be a variety. You're teaching using a video, you're using song, a play. There is variety in the way the lesson is presented. Not every time you're seated in front and they know exactly. In fact, there's some students who can mimic exactly what you're going to say, the way you're going to start your lesson. So you should have variety. And then the next one is issues of perceived competency. You have to appreciate that learners are at an entry level and they're all at different level, but you should allow them to grow at their own individual level. And my last point is about extrinsic motivator. And that is where you come in as a teacher about how do you motivate them extrinsically. And it should be flowers because they will fade with time. It should be something which is very, very organized, like listing the people on the wall or being able to recognize somebody and say, Domitila, you have done well today. Very constructive. Not Domitila, you have done well, but Domitila, you have done well in responding to the questions. So you dig deeper and you focus on the activity. So these factors, they interact in complex way and they are effective in teaching, and it will involve putting all this strategy together, creating that holistic environment from the person, from the content, from the contextualization, from the constructing of learning environment, all the way to make them to conceptualize. I call it 4C. Content from KICD, contextualization for the teacher, construction from the learners and students, and conceptualization, what the Kenya National Examination Council tests. Thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you very much, Dr. Maina. I think that is actually very nicely dealt with in terms of deconstructing and unpacking the whole theory behind student engagement. I actually agree with you to a very great extent on especially on the issue to do with providing constructive feedback as opposed to just telling the student good. But then the question comes, what does good mean? Or excellent, because I see many times I see those comments on teachers on teachers' notebooks. Excellent, but then constructively, really, what does that mean? In short, tell the student, yes, up to this point you were able to achieve A, B, C, D, and you can list down the specifics. But then tell them, based on this, it's good that on one side of the on this side of the argument you've done well on these specifics. However, there are a few loose ends that need to be tightened. Do A, B, C, D in order to improve. Perfect. Now let us see engagement in action. Domitila, as an experienced teacher. So what teaching methodologies or classroom practices have proven successful in fostering student engagement in your practice? Please share.
All right. I hope I'm audible enough. I hope everyone can hear me. Well, it's amazing how we individually had something to present, and whatever's been mentioned by Mr. Jasper and Mr. Maina has so much correlation with what I had in mind. And this shows that as educators, we think alike, and this goes to the benefit of the student. So in a science perspective, because sometimes I like to attack learning in a science kind of perspective, we say that teaching is like performing a non-invasive brain surgery on 25 patients at a time. So you're trying to master the art of teaching a group of kids and trying to come up with a way of engaging those different brains at the same time. So in my teaching, I attack the level of understanding by introducing the concept of curiosity. I have to make my students curious about what I'm going to teach, because if I make them curious, then I'm going to activate their dopamine. They would want to know, so miss, what about this? What does this do? So, and that means I have to come up with creative ways of introducing the concepts. For instance, the first means that I will talk about is the aspect of incongruities. This is like moving from what is known to the unknown. For instance, at the beginning of your slides, I'll become as practical as possible. The first slide could be a question: which one belongs, which one does not belong? So you come up with different pictures. Now, speaking of math, since I'm a math teacher, let's say I'm talking about geometry. So I'll come up with different shapes, and I would like to know whether they can see the differences in those shapes since it's geometry, and they would give me their ideas. Which one belongs and why? Which one doesn't belong and why? Others would say, miss, none of them belongs. And then I would ask why. So you see, I'm trying to arouse the curiosity in the students before I go into the actual concept. And at the back of their minds, they may not know, but their learning has begun from that point, from them sharing what they know through what they see, through what they observe, and through the feedback that they give me. Another concept would be introducing something like suspense in your teaching. You know, you can give them a question and set it in such a way that it creates some suspense and creates room for them to think more about that particular concept. Let it not be the idea of the teacher doing the norm, standing in front there and telling them everything. No, let them have the chance to also dig into what they know. And we use different sites. Like in my school, we highly encourage the use of technology, whereby we provide the kids with, for instance, iPads. And I'm going to mention particular sites in math. We use this site called Desmos. So Desmos is a site that has been created in an imagery kind of a way, whereby they learn the concept by thinking by themselves and also trying to find solutions by themselves without necessarily me teaching them how to do it. My part is only to introduce the concept, mention the key things that they need to remember while doing the work, and also mentioning the areas that they will find in that activity. And their part, for the most part of the lesson, is to figure out how to solve different questions, which is based on what I have introduced to them, like in the first 15 minutes of the lesson. So if you come to my classroom, you will not find me speaking. Let's say it's a 1-hour lesson. I will only speak in the first 15 minutes of the lesson. The remaining 45 minutes, it's for them to figure out how to solve different problems. So how is this beneficial? One, I will get to know my different students. I'll get to know those who grasp the concept quick. I would get to know those who need more help. I would get to know those who have understood. And it will help me get so much information about that particular concept and about how my individual students have understood. Yeah, so that is how I believe a classroom setup should be. It's not about you, the teacher. It's about them. And it's about them being interested in what you're saying. You see, when kids are young, like in the kindergarten level, they're so curious because they're still learning. They want to know almost everything. They will ask questions about everything. But as they grow up, the curiosity decreases. When they go to middle school, the curiosity goes down. When they go to high school, it even goes lower than middle school. So it's upon you as the teacher to get to devise means on how to bring this curiosity back. Yeah, and this narrows down to the methods that you use in the classroom. So that is what I would say when it comes to how I deliver my classroom teaching and learning. It's about the students and it's about them doing the work themselves and them asking the questions. Mine is to go around and answer individual questions. So you have to make sure also as a teacher, in whatever discipline you're in whatever subject you're teaching, know that a student would grasp it at a different level. You might have a bright student. They will be good in geometry, they will be good in algebra, but they may not be good in statistics and probability. So simply because the student is bright doesn't mean they will have the same interest across everything that you're going to teach. Because I've had several feedback, like Jasper mentioned, you need to ask them from your observation, because I've had an instance of a kid who does well in algebra, does well in geometry, but when it comes to probability, they do really poorly. And I'm like, you're really bright, so what's up with probability? And they're like, Miss, I don't like the unit. So through that feedback, I would have to come up with different ways of making this student have the same interest in probability as they have in algebra or geometry. That is why it's very important to individualize learning. Never treat it as a whole class concept. You have to narrow it down. And how would you know that? By giving the student the chance to probe those questions and also come up with those questions. Do less talking, let them do more work. So that is how I do my teaching in the classroom.
Excellent, excellent thoughts, Domitila. It's really good to see how you are actually recruiting interest and sustaining that level of motivation in your classroom. And I think most of your ideas and that philosophy really marries perfectly well with actually approves some of the theoretical concepts that Dr. Maina was discussing here and what Jasper had actually given us earlier. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's actually a great opportunity for us to actually get now to hear of this from the students, because at the receiving end of this business, we have the student. Nisi, it's your moment. So as a student representative, could you provide examples of strategies that have personally encouraged your own engagement in the learning process?
First of all, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. I would say during my years in high school, there were many things I had gone through that really sparked up my engagement in class. I would say, as Ms. Domitila had said, open-end questions. It always sparks up the spirit of curiosity. It makes me think as a teacher is teaching, what's the answer to this question? And how does the content that the teacher is giving me answer this question? Which brings up questions, which brings up discussions, which makes the class more interesting and even easier for the student to understand the content of the class. Then also group projects. In my school, at the end of a certain topic, we would have a chance of explaining how we understood that content to the class. Because we'd have some students who probably not understand how the teacher teaches it, but would understand how the student would teach in front of the class, which gives a chance for the students to interact, have fun, and get to know more on the content. Then also friendly competitions. Obviously, bringing up a competition in class would wake up students, would make them now interact together and now think about how to answer these questions. At the end of each class would be given, like, let me say in the instance of math, would be given questions and then would be split up into groups. Everyone is like, okay, let's all solve these equations together so that we are able to win the competition. And the good thing that it's friendly. So it doesn't bring up all those other emotions, but it brings up the students' engagement in class, making them able to learn in different other ways. Because not all students can be able to understand the content. It's just the teacher talking and talking all the time, but also having a chance to apply what they have learned into these questions, and also learning and also finding out the gap areas that they have in that subject, and also having a chance to speak. Having a chance to speak would give you, even a safe place to speak, would give you comfort to ask questions, because some teachers would kind of attack you if you don't understand the content. But if you have a safe chat, a safe space, and a chance to speak, it would really encourage students and even encourage me to engage in the class. So that's what I think about.
Thank you very much, Nisi, for sharing that experience. And one of the things I can actually, agree with you is that, the extent to which the learners are actually engaged, it's not only about the teacher talking, and this actually aligns with the ideas that Domitila was talking about, reducing teacher talk and encouraging more of the student voice in the classroom. Now, let's throw, something else into this discussion to just elevate it to another level. We are at an agreement that technology is becoming increasingly integrated into education. Now, Mr. Felix, expert, how can educators leverage educational technology to enhance student engagement without sacrificing real-time interactions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohati, for engaging discussion that is raging on and on, from Jasper to Daktari to Malim Domitila and to my student Nisi there, shining a light on the place of projects, engagement, the teachers staying on for long, speaking on, and creating that safe space. Technology does nothing except what the pen does, except what the games do. Because at the heart of education is technology that has been changing things from the days of feathers, writing with ink on, to the days now when you talk about gadgets like what Domitila called the iPads and all that. That has been technology. And I think we look at all these things, and as we consider what we're calling engagement, for me, just like Daktari said, it's about student voice and student agency, student choice. If you do not give students the choice, the opportunity, their voice to be heard, like Nisi mentioned, Domitila mentioned, and Jasper mentioned, it will be a sheer wastage of time. And so technology does not do anything outside of that. It only enhances. At the heart of the 4 C's, Daktari mentioned content, context, conceptualization at the assessment level. And in the 4 C's, you find technology coming in at any level. Let me pick the first one. And this is the one that focuses on content. I believe for purposes of student choice and voice, it's important that curriculum design is done with students' voice involved. So the days are gone when we would just share the course outline and for students to take it up, stick it on our notebooks, and say that is the only thing that we are going to do. At the moment, what you can do is you share the course outline with the students, you challenge them to incorporate what they could know from whatever age you're looking at, to research and find out what it is that they can do. And that way you flip the learning. So I'm talking about searching on the internet, pursuing what we are saying as what you'd say as as the content that you're going to look into, how it can be delivered differently. And there are various approaches to that. One, we talk about the technology integration framework called SAMA. What am I losing? Let me just type it, SAMR, model of ICT integration or technology integration. And this one encourages the students to look at things within the teaching platform or content that they can substitute aspects of the lesson course outline that they could augment with you. Actually, it's not like you are working alone. Learning facilitator, Dr. Maina Agioko, tells me they can also actually also modify. It's not for even just, it's not even for assessment. This is for, you know, the delivery, the pedagogy, the content itself. And, you know, finally, you'll be able to see what you can actually redefine within that course outline in the way it can be delivered. Let me give an example. We are in I don't want to say English class, a lesson where students are learning English. And what you find that is that students who can write a composition or a narrative or an argumentative essay, some of them can go to ChatGPT and get everything and place it on your table, and they tell you they are done. But what I'm talking about is differently, totally different. Normally, the students would write a composition on a book using a pen like mine and submit the paper to the teacher for marking. That would be something that would be normal. But if we can substitute that with typing on a Word document, that's on another level. But better still is where the students actually write that document on Microsoft Word online or Google Docs. And so as Nisi writes, I can see what she's writing as a teacher, or later on, as she mentioned, I think Dominica mentioned, or one of the panelists, that you can actually do peer assessment. So they write an argumentative assignment, but then on Google Docs or Microsoft Word online, they can actually peer check each other before the teacher even sees where they can submit the comments. And finally, you can take it to the blog space where Domitila from all the way from the UK, or Dr. Muhatu is in India, or Mr. Maina Agioko, who was recently in Canada, can actually access that document and give comments as a way of giving feedback. That is technology for you, and you can take any corner that you give it. There are several aspects that you can incorporate, just to say, in all those aspects that we mentioned, from what is called autonomy and control for the student, ownership, rigor and mastery, include, among others. We are encouraged as teachers to use what we call flipped learning. And what I normally see teachers doing nowadays, before the lesson, they record, like today is on Saturday, I would spend 2 days, 2 hours, just recording 5 lessons for what we are going to learn next week. And so a day before what we are doing, I will not send homework. I will send a video explaining a concept. Like for me in computer science, I would share something about converting binary to denary, to denary to binary. I could be teaching about mathematics, and I'm teaching about the elevation and what the other one. I'm still a math teacher, by the way. So I can actually share a video, you know, designing something. It's not even that much. You flip that, you share it in the evening, in the morning when you meet with the students, you're going to engage them in trying to explain what they learned from the video. So you can hear the student's voice itself before you give them a task where they can collaborate with one another, whether they are doing an online mathematics task using the gadgets, or you're just engaging them on paperwork. One of the most important things, apart from outside the flipped learning and all technology stuff, is that you need to remember that it's a balance you're looking for, because the main thing is learning, not teaching. It's not teaching the technology. It's not delivery to the students. The students can access the content. All they need is someone to guide them. So at the center of educational technology and the teaching that you're doing is a call for balance, a right balance, whereby you leverage on the place of technology and also ensure you have real-time interactions. And that way, flipped learning will make sense. If you have robotic kits for those who teach subjects that are related to that, whether it is in PhET simulations in science or augmented reality in robotics and coding, or you're using platforms like Google Docs, you don't want to be able to take the students to Google Docs so much, Google Workspace or Microsoft Teams, such that they forget who they are, and so they continue sharing those emojis and GIFs, you know, forget the learning goal. The most important thing is to ensure learning is happening and not, you know, just distract them. I have seen teachers, I was one of them, I'm still am, but I have seen teachers who just give assignments and they give students notes online, and they think now we are integrating technology in the classroom. Or you guys know, and I'm not mentioning anyone, that someone shares slides, 83 slides in one lesson. Are you kidding me? And then you say you are using technology and you're very happy. Yet the students got bored, they have been drawing everything, they have been practicing the art lesson in a global politics class or GP class. What about social media? How can you incorporate that so that the students can actually go outside their normal comfort and maybe contribute in a podcast? I know what I'm saying, by the way. It is possible. Anyone can do a podcast, even in the local arena, where the children can actually contribute in the podcast, even from home, where the moms have the phones. Social media is there. There are many other things. You could talk about polling and audience response systems, where we send things like poll everywhere, Mentimeter, you know, the Kahoots, like someone mentioned about what Nis was saying, interactive games where they are just friendly competitions. They are friendly. They are not the ones that are going to cause you to be at ease, or not at ease, but the one that actually encourage you to have fun as you learn. And competitions here, you can even do team learning. Like in Kahoot, you do team kind of mode, so that nobody feels outside. And when we win all of us, and we can try again as long as we go. You know, there are so many things we can say. Let me stop at that and continue from there. Thank you, Dr. Mohati.
That is very rich. I do not actually intend to dilute the wealth of wisdom and knowledge that you've shared about technology. Allow me to just go straight to something different, but within the same realm, within the same theme that you're handling today. And this is a question that is intentionally directed to Dr. Maina, although there's something that you had talked about a bit lightly, but I think there's a moment to just expand it a little bit more. Now, cultivating a sense of belonging can significantly impact engagement. So, Dr. Maina, how can educators create an inclusive classroom environment that resonates with diverse student backgrounds and learning styles? We've had Domitila, I think Jasper, and you've also talked about this a bit lightly in terms of the issues to do with the classroom environment and matters of inclusion. Let's have that conversation.
Thank you very much, Mohati, for that. You know, the terminology inclusive classroom environment, I like unpacking terminology so that we are all on the same page. It does not mean the presence of the student in class physically, but they also have to be there psychologically, emotionally, and also conceptually during the learning moment. So to begin with, there must be a clear expectation in that particular class from the beginning, so that they know in Domitila's class, today we are learning algebra, what are the expectations? So at the beginning, there has to be a clear expectation. We'll be moving around, we'll be working in pairs, we'll be doing some drawing, we have to submit something. It must be clear so that mentally they are engaged, because there is the structure, the mental structure of what am I going to do is formulated by the teacher's expectation. And I like what Domitila said, know your students. You have to know your students, because I used to be a math teacher, and when I'm teaching probability and there is a game coming, I will use the game for the students who love game. I will use another different activity for another group of students. So you must know your students, their backgrounds, their interests, their learning styles, so that you can vary the way you present tasks. I know we were trying to do one task for the whole class. Sorry, you're not teaching Form 3B. You are teaching 25 minds in Form 3B. So you need to articulate and know that, cluster them according to their learning style and know them in groups. Third, you need to incorporate diverse perspective. Open-mindedness is very critical in the class. We have to move away from right, wrong, and we inculcate, oh, thank you, Domitila, thank you, Nisi. But there is also an alternative perspective of what you have said, meaning that you are appreciating what the learners are bringing on board, but you are also aware of alternative ways. Because when a student gives you an answer, it doesn't mean it is wrong to them. It is correct, but it is not correct according to your marking scheme. So it is not matching your marking scheme. So it is you to bring to them that there is an alternative response to that question. And also the kind of material you use. Felix has talked about use material which bring inclusivity. If you're using a slide, can you also have a printout? Can you also have a video? So that if you use one way of learning and your learners are diverse, then you don't use universal design of learning, then you are excluding people. So you have to appreciate, as different as your fingers are, your students are, and therefore you have to bring multiple perspective. Communication is very, very important. How do you foster open communication in the class, whereby students feel comfortable? Okay, excuse me, miss, did you mean probability? And nobody laughs about it because everybody has a voice in that particular class. Therefore, you are creating opportunity for students to share their thoughts and concerns without bias, without labeling, and without bringing anybody down. So there must be an issue of promoting understanding and empathy in the room, because you have seen in our time, a certain students will ask something and everybody will laugh. That should not be the case. Everybody should be treated the way they are, because it is the reason why they're in school, they have come there to learn. So being biased and only listening to those high performance and forgetting the other ones is not right. Then you must collaborate, promote the issue of collaboration. I know Nisi talked about competition, but nowadays we call it collaboration, whereby we are collaborating together, we swim together, we sink together. So group work, projects, people who are bringing different viewpoints, discussions. So once you bring that issues of people allowing multiple perspective, then it fosters engagement, because they know there's no one answer, but there are many. The other one, which is very crucial, is promoting choice and flexibility. When I was a maths teacher and I want my student to do 5 questions, I will give them 10 and I tell them choose any 5. They feel so empowered because they have a choice. But when you are giving 5 questions and you are forcing them to do the 5 which you chose, then you are contriving their choice. So you need to give them choice and flexibility. If they're supposed to present a project, to tell them you can use a video, you can make a poster, you can use a PowerPoint, you can just come in front and speak, or you can design a skit. I normally do that. It is hard to mark. It is hard to mark, but it is the best learning moment, because you will see variety. You will bring in talent because they are there. And then the next one is the language you use. Use an inclusive language. Don't stereotype. Wale werevu, wale wanajua. The language you use is very, very critical. You should not be biased. It's not be stereotype. You have to be very sensitive that these students are different and they are coming out in a different way. And then try to address microaggression. When you put groups, you will see students, no, I don't want to work with Muhati. Oh, no, I need to work with Felix. So try to catch those things very early as they're happening in class, so that they can see, hey, you can work with anybody. You can work with anybody. You can choose things to work. So make sure that you are maintaining an inclusive environment in the class. The other critical thing is individual needs. All students have come with their laptops. Maina does not have a laptop. Do you leave me to sit there? Or do you try to address the need that I have? And the next one, Jasper talked about it, Domitila has said, is seek feedback. In fact, this one has given me jobs, because I used to write a small paper and I give to students, how do you think about me? How do I teach? I have 5 questions which I used to give, and I have made in my portfolio, I've made a profile which tells anybody who wants to give me any work what students think about me in lower level, in middle level, in higher level, in degree level, in PhD level. And that, if you want to know who I am, talk to my students. It's a very powerful, risky endeavor, but it is an eye-opening because it is your students who are your client. Your work is for your students. So how they see you matters. The next is appropriate diversity. In fact, I was just finishing a course on cultural competency. In class, people have different way they think. So we need to open up and read about diversity in classroom and how do you celebrate diversity. And my final point is role modeling. These students, they read our body language. If we are not passionate with what we're doing, why are we expecting them to be passionate? So we need to be passionate. We need to love what we are doing. We need to have the right attitude. We need to respect everybody, and we have to treat everybody equally. So creating an inclusive classroom takes time and effort, but it can significantly impact students' engagement and overall learning outcome. By fostering a sense of belonging and respect diverse backgrounds and learning style. I remember I had a student who used to write opposite. The book is opposite, and she used to write this way. She's now a medical doctor in UK. If I had stopped her, forced her to be like the rest, that would have been the biggest mistake. Remember, learners learn differently. So long as they're not disrupting the learning in the classroom, please allow them to learn in their way. Thank you.
Excellent views, Dr. Maina. One of the things I think I heard you talking about Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, even though you did not mention that, but the MI theory was actually very, 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 very conspicuous in that discussion. And something else, I could also collect a wide range of concerns relating to the Vygotsky's theory of the zone of proximal development and how, the support of the teacher, as a capable interlocutor comes in. That opportunity for students to grow progressively towards a greater level of autonomy and independence in learning. Okay, one of the things I think up to that point, educators, we can all embrace the whole idea that there is no one size fits all approach to making engagement a reality in your classroom. All right, let's now look at this. Ms. Domitila, I hope you're still around. Project-based learning and experiential activities are often touted for their engagement benefits. So how can educators effectively implement these approaches in various subject areas and academic levels? Domitila, 3 minutes would suffice.
Okay, so before I even dig deep into project-based learning or experimental learning, we have to remember this is a very risky path in some way, because you're allowing students to now do something on a large scale kind of view from what you've taught. You're allowing them to come up with something of their own, be it a project, be it them doing a case study. If you're teaching something like geography and everything, they will go out there and they will seek every source of information that would help them to understand whatever you want them to accomplish. So you have to make sure as an educator, before you enforce this in your classroom, you have to make the objective clear. Because you see, learning is very broad. Learning is very, different people have posted different things in relation to what they would learn in the classroom. So if you want them to learn something specific, but you want them to go out there and research and maybe do a project or maybe do experiment on something, you have to guide them. And one thing that I would really emphasize on is, if it's project-based, make it long-term. Why would you make it long-term? This would give room for every student to be included. I know some students will finish this in 1 week. I know some will finish this in 2 weeks. I know some will need the confidence to actually go out there and do that project. So give them a time frame that would allow everyone to do the research that you want and for them to come up with something and present it. Another reason as to why it has to be long-term is you have to slowly guide them towards the main objective. So project-based learning is seen in the essence where you allow your students to divert and go seek information from different sources and different researches and everything that has been said in the internet. Just like Felix is saying, like the internet is something that is being used nowadays very actively when it comes to learning. So they're going to pick everything. So you're allowing them to divert. That's why I'm calling it a risky kind of engagement, because you see, you're exposing them to a lot and you have to bring them together and make them understand a particular objective. So you need to give every student that time to come and seek guidance from you as the teacher as you lead them towards the main objective. For instance, let me use my subject, mathematics, and something that we've practically done recently with my students. So I'm currently based in middle school and I'm teaching grade 6 and 7 math, and that is in the American system. So we were teaching them about the concept of area and surface area and volume. And at the end of the term, they had to do what we call a treehouse project, where we allowed them to, since every student has an iPad, we allowed them to download a 3D app that would enable them to create a 3D structure of a treehouse. They would use any shape they want. They would use cylinders, they would use prisms, they would use anything, and they would design the treehouse however they wanted. So what was the first step? The first step was actually teaching them, how do you calculate area? How do you calculate surface area? How do you calculate volume? What's the difference between surface area and area? What's the difference between a 2D shape and a 3D shape? And then the school went an extra mile to take the students for an educational trip to a park that displayed different tree houses made in different shapes and different sizes and different designs, just to make them think of the ideas, you know. So again, this is something that has to be collaborative with the team. Like if you're in the math department, you can come up with the idea and present it to the school, and you will tell them of the benefits of that. So after that, they now come to the classroom and they design their own tree house. They incorporate their own shapes. And then I have to come in again after they've designed it. I now ask them, so if your floor, or maybe can you describe to me your floor plan? Like, why does it have triangles? Why does it have this? Can you come up with a budget on how you would maybe fit this and this and this? Now, let me talk about something we call differentiation. I know it's been mentioned, it hasn't been like mentioned conspicuously, but in our conversation in this panel, it has come out really. So for some students, I will only stick with calculate the area of this. For the students that I know can handle, I will go to the extent of, can you find me the surface area and come up with a budget of how you would fix this and this and this, because I know they can handle it. You know, it's called, okay, how I bring it in my classroom is, are you ready for more? So that is a section for students who I know can handle. So I have to differentiate, because some kids were like, so miss, I'm done with my project. I've done the area, I've done this, what next? So I have to think fast. That is what you should have in mind when it comes to project-based. It's something that is really involving. And yes, it enables them to understand the concept more, because they're interacting with the concept for a longer period of time. And therefore, by them doing the experiments, they get to repeat it over and over and over again, not only in a single lesson or 2 lessons and then exams. So it's something continuous. And then they could now apply that in the papers when they're doing the examinations and all that. So what I've found very beneficial in the international schools, yes, they allow provisions for this, but now again, if we are talking about our schools, maybe in Kenya, like our 844 system, this can also be incorporated. You don't have to really do all the things that maybe the school cannot manage, but you as the teacher, as long as you have the objective, you can come up with a means of developing a project for your students, yeah, based on what you want them to pick out at the end of the day or what you want them to understand. You can come up with an ambiguous question that, for instance, introduces the concept of controversy. You will just want them to think in a different way, and then you ask them, can you figure out how you would handle this question? Give me your ideas. They bring their ideas together, maybe give them 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks, hold a discussion in the classroom. It doesn't have to be something grand, but at least you've given them enough time to interact with that particular concept. So if I'm to summarize all this, I would say yes, project-based learning initiates and allows for more understanding of what you have taught, but you have to be a guide and you have to lead your students to what you want them to understand. If you don't do that, the risk is they may even get more confused because they've been exposed to so much more. So be the center. Be the center. All that they have to bring to the table, centralize it to the objective. And that's your role when it comes to experiments, so maybe any project-based kind of learning. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Domitila, once again. You have actually spotlighted a very important concern when it comes to, how do we just open up that space? Because we are now coming from a premise that students learn in strikingly different ways. They're coming from diverse backgrounds. They have, their interests also vary markedly. But then you're bringing in a very important concern about time. How do you actually apportion time? Because sometimes we tend to rush so much in terms of covering the syllabus and all that. And then we say, I mean, guys, I want this by tomorrow morning. But then we forget that there's also a concept that has really, for the students to actually enjoy and get to understand it even more broadly, there has to be very great links, very tight threads drawn between the concept and the real life out there. Thank you so much. Now, one of the things that we all come to an agreement is that there are tensions that we face as educators, and because many of us are traditionally oriented to utilize the traditional methods, which we'll all agree it is reaching a point where those methods are actually not yielding results. So Jasper, this is actually a moment for you to help us understand how do we deal with these tensions. Balancing traditional lecture style teaching with more interactive methods such as the ones described by Domitila has become a challenge. So how can educators balance this problem? Jasper.
Thank you, Dr. And it basically boils down to what all the panelists have talked about. They have basically highlighted different teaching and learning methodologies vis-a-vis now the traditional, for example, the lecture method that quite a number of teachers use, especially in the local curriculum. I have a friend of mine who went to one of the schools in Dubai, and she was telling me that after 3 days, the employer was almost sacking her. And what is the reason? Because she was employing more of lecture method and she was alienating other teaching methods. I think the main question that we need to ask is, what is the main goal of teaching?
I think we lost him. Am I the only one? He's muted.
Jasper, looks like we lost you.
Sorry. You heard me from the beginning?
We lost you somewhere.
Okay, I don't know where he lost me, but I was saying what is important is what is the main goal of offering education, or what is the end product that we want from this particular learner. That's why we have the IB learner profile for the international baccalaureate, that talks about that this learner should be a good communicator, should be an inquirer, confident, should have critical thinking. So if we have these particular end that you're looking to, then we should be able to use different methodologies that can enable us reach that particular end. And Felix, Maina, Domitila, and Nisi have done a fantastic job in elucidating different types of methodologies. So the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what do we want at the end of the day? What type of learner do we want? So if you look at the type of learner you want, then you can be able to decide and say, I want to inculcate critical thinking in this learner. So which activity am I going to give that can give me this good result? Because lecture method, for example, cannot be able to inculcate all these particular skills that we want. So I think asking ourselves the end product that we want can enable us to create that balance.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jasper. Now, I'd want to now get your voice, your opinion on this particular issue, Nisi. One of the things that has actually been emphasized, and Dr. actually did this earlier, is that student decision, student voice, and your participation is actually now becoming a critical component of learning and curriculum design. So, Nisi, from your perspective, how can educational institutions involve students in decision-making process to create a more engaging and student-centered environment? Nisi, please unmute your video. Thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I think I'll just go. Okay, so one thing schools can do, or educational institutions can do, they can create something called a student council, where certain classes can have a representative, where other students can come and talk to them about their opinions or any suggestion that they have for the teacher to make the lessons more interactive and more engaging, where now even the student representative can present the class, can just represent the whole class to the teacher in the time of making decisions on how to make the lessons more engaging and, let's say, creative. And also creating a safe space. Creating a safe space would give the student a feeling of, if I talk, I'm heard. And if I give an opinion or suggestion, the teacher would keep that in mind when thinking of, okay, let me create this activity for the students to like understand the content, because it would also help the teacher to know this is what the students think about my classes, and this is what I should do on from this point, making it an easier decision making. So those two, creating a student council, where even other student representatives can talk between each other and now decide on how to bring it up to the teachers, and also creating a safe space where the students can give their opinions and suggestions to the teachers and feeling comfortable and feeling heard. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nisi. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have had diverse and a wide range of concerns on this, on this whole theme of student engagement. Now, against this background, then we can infuse an issue to do with how then do we access all this? How do we learn about this? And where can we receive support? The answer, I can say, could be on an issue to do with professional development, which is, we all come to an agreement that learning is a continuous process until, in as long as you're a teacher, you're the first student. So, Felix, professional development, we understand, is key for educators to stay updated on effective engagement strategies. So what opportunities or resources should educational institutions provide to support their teaching staff in this regard? Felix.
Thank you. First of all, I am so grateful because Jasper, Nisi, Domitila, and Dr. Maina, everyone is speaking about things that I resonate with. And I just want to take a very brief session to talk about PD. But before I even do that, yes, it is not easy to mark students who are coming to present without a PowerPoint or a Canva presentation. It's not easy for people, for students, it is not easy for the teacher to come up with a rubric that is going to do the audio presentation without anything else, maybe a speech, you know, but that is what it is. And those are the students that we're having in our class. We have to understand alongside the learning style is the pace. And pace is a long one because Domitila says, if you want to give the students a project, give the student the project at the beginning of the term. Don't wait for them to learn electricity in grade 5 in science. And then at the end of the term, ask them to go home, buy some batteries and then do it and then present to school. Then you give them 22 out of 30. No, that will not happen because the parents will do the project and there will not be evidence of what they have learned. Give the student the work at the beginning of the term. Give them the parameters. Now, Domitila mentioned something about how we can really guide students from the beginning so that they don't go outside. So last 2 weeks or 2 weeks ago, a fortnight ago, we had a PBL session here with all the teachers and we talked about 4 aspects. One of them was defining parameters. How far can you go? Then from there, defining the lesson objective. Then you looking at what tools you'll use before you can look at what they need to learn, etc. And all that in the PBL arena will help the students and the teacher, walk the journey. So even the assessment, you don't want to stifle their options for being given feedback, like Dr. Maina was saying. You have an opportunity to, provide them a large opportunity in terms of choice so that they can actually choose what it is that they want to do and how to do it. Looking into PBL, no, PD. Of course, the teacher who does not encourage PD or does not involve themselves in PD, do you know what they will do? They will give the students notes and they tell the students, nowadays it's easy. You just read the notes and you do the exam and that's it. Or you give them questions from the past papers and they sit down and they do they'll go through the questions. And if you try to talk, my friend, the teacher will tell you, come on, don't you know what maths is? And that is a hard question in computer science, by the way. Or if they will tell you, you mean you up to this level in year 12 or in year 10, you don't know how to check the angle of, is it depression or elevation? I'm trying to remember those things. You mean you don't understand logarithms in Form 3? So the teacher is trying to tell the students, I have taught you for a long time. Do this thing, you are on your own. Now it's your time to shine. After all, it's student-centered learning. No, it will not happen. It will not happen. So for purposes of ensuring that students are getting what they are paid for first, but also where they have created their time to come to the classroom. PD is important, and at the moment the highest was around 125. We are around 110. It's not easy for teachers to sit at night and listen to us. It's not easy for parents who are interested in their children to sit at this time to listen to us and to learn from one another and share their comments in the chat. It's not easy, but this is what is going to inform the many disengaged students in our country. And attrition is not about even the grades. There are students who are leaving with those grades because they had to cram for the last paper of the last part of the exam and then go mess up because Mr. Ogioko speaks about social emotional learning. It was not provided. So we need to ensure engagement, inclusion, and all these other aspects that we are talking about make sense. And that can only happen if we continue growing, just like Mohati says, the teacher is the first learner. So what is available? Number one, workshops and training sessions. Nobody knows it all. I don't know everything. I need to know more. I need to learn about not Prosper. I keep calling him Prosper because Prosper is here and is from Tanzania. It's my good friend who joins our sessions every time. Mr. Jasper mentioned something about the current and growing, and Mr. Ogioko puts them very well. The teaching methods. You cannot sit in the classroom and say you're going to teach like you taught yesterday or like last term. This is a new year. At least it's a new academic year. You should come up with the new teaching methods. Have you learned about concept-based learning? Mr. Maina has been talking about that many times without mentioning it. Conceptualized kind of way of delivering to the students. What about technology integration? What about engagement strategies? Are you getting consistent results of students failing and you don't care? or you just looking for that opportunity where you can get a tuition. No, we are asking you, come up the game. You can join us at Educators Network every Saturday, or at least a fortnight, so that you can continue sharpening the saw, as Stephen Covey says. Number 2, Mr. Maina, Khadija, who is here also, and recently Dr. Okay, I call him Dr. Mr. Muhati, our moderator, as was asking about how to publish our research. Access research from Mr. Maina, Mr. Wagioko. You can share something about where we can find a lot of research, where we can publish, where they have been published. A lot of research, access research and literature, from which provides you with educational journals, research papers, publications that highlight innovative pedagogical approaches. It will not be the same. Otherwise, you'll always have disengaged students and attrition in your classroom, and it will not be informed by those ABCD answers or those assignments you give for the end of term, or not even the GCSE or KCPE, KCSE. What will happen is that you're losing an entire generation. The other thing is peer learning communities. We are at Educator Center, Educators Network. There is Microsoft Educators in Kenya. There is Google Educators Group. There are so many PLC communities, or peer learning or professional learning communities within our country, or within where we are. This one, the one we are in, is one of those. Then include yourself in mentorship programs. There is 1 million teachers that they are free. Can I say this? All these things I've said so far are free. Training sessions, research, peer learning communities, mentorship programs like 1 million teachers, others we are calling Step for Africa. We have all that. And then what about online platform? By the way, I'm waiting for those people who say the school has not paid for me. I will say, like they say in that's Nigeria, sure. What is it called? Ojo. They say no, nothing. There is a word they use there. But can't say that. You can't keep blaming the administration for not paying for a course for you. There is so much to learn. There is online learning platform. Have you checked EDX, where you can go and access content about pedagogical practices? What about Coursera? All these are platforms that are available. Mr. Wamena keeps sharing about conferences and workshops. There is even people who are funded. I am a beneficiary together with Wagioko and others from the old participating in the Microsoft programs. You hear about people talking about Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert. You think it's a joke. It's not a joke. It has taken me to France. It has taken Maina to Toronto. It can take you there. So all you need to do is avail yourself for this opportunity. Stop always prioritizing. Okay, it's like I'm scolding someone, but I just feel like when sometimes we give up and we say we don't need that thing because it's not giving me money. No, come sharpen the saw. So you can go and get opportunities to be funded to go for conferences and join workshops. Finally, as I come to the close, is the place of institutional support for advanced degrees. There are many platforms. I am a computer scientist. So what I do, I go to Pluralsight, I go to Microsoft Azure, and I check what they are providing. Maybe I need to pay $5 so that I can be certified. Or I just need to access the content like FutureLearn and access that platform where I can grow my skill. Is it about the science of learning? Is it about metacognition? Is it about what we are talking about, engagement and disengagement of learners? Is it about attrition? Is it about inclusive pedagogies? They are all there, where you can actually access those platforms, and you pay maybe a dime. Just not a dime, I don't know, a dime is a big thing, but a few things here and there. What about opportunities when we ask for people to come and facilitate our sessions like this one? Guest speakers and experts. We don't need to know so much. You just need to share your experience. We call you every fortnight or every Saturday and ask who is available. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's judging me right now and telling me, I don't care, by the way. I'm enjoying this moment because of Mitila. When she speaks my heart. When Nisi speaks, she reminds me of my students and what I can do for them tomorrow. Then there is access to technology and software. Please, just how you can teach. Come to this community, learn how to use a tool like Microsoft Teams. Join another one. Listen about how to come up with a timetable for your school. Is it called ISIS or SCT? Joel Kahindi can tell us. There is supportive leadership. You can also, look for opportunities. What about Microsoft Learn for Educators or Google Center for courses? Teacher Center, Google Teacher Center. These are platforms that give you even recognition and badges, including the MIE expert. I can keep going on and on. Please dive in. Don't wait for the school to pay for you. It won't, because it's not about the school. It's about you and your students making a difference transforming generations. Muhati, back to you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, it's actually important for educators to belong to these professional associations and communities. And thank you very much for highlighting that. It's also very important for educators to be the lovers of learning, because through professional development, that is when you're able to demystify misconceptions and learn and relearn, as Dr. Maina consistently speaks about that. Now, we are almost coming to the home stretch of this session, and allow me to come to the final thoughts session. And these are questions we want to pose to the panelists. Each one of you will have a moment, at most 2 minutes, to just give your final thoughts. So I put forward the question. So if each panelist could offer one actionable strategy that educators can implement immediately to enhance student engagement, so what strategy would it be? So I will start with you, Jasper.
For me, Mr. Muhati, Felix talked about flipped classroom, whereby you give the learners assignments. I mean, if it is watching those videos, coming up with material, then as a teacher, you can reinforce whatever that has been made by this particular student. Will go a long way in ensuring that these students work, they develop interest in whatever that they are doing. Therefore, I think flipped classroom is really a good idea. It is a good methodology that we need to embrace in our classrooms.
Thank you very much, Jasper. I'll come to you, Domitila. In the meantime, Felix, get ready. Domitila, share the final thoughts, a strategy we can embrace. Yes.
I thought you said I'll come to you, Domitila, so Felix could go. And so I was waiting for Felix to speak first. Yeah, so what strategy can I propose that you can implement immediately? I would say get in touch with, as Felix has said, I want to give each of us an assignment. Go look for these educational sites that are free online and get to know what they offer. Because I might give you my options. There's some that have worked for me in my discipline, but now when it comes to your own subjects or what you're teaching, kindly go check these specific sites that you could use and make your teaching more interactive for your students. For math teachers, I would, since that is immediate and what I'm doing right now, what I would propose is get in touch with this site called Mammoth Learning. Maybe after I speak, I'm going to draft a few in the chat that you could go and have a look at. It presents a very pictorial way of learning and gives step-by-step instructions on how to arrive at the answer in different concepts. Recently, I found it really, really useful. And which other site am I going to advocate for? Now, I would have advocated for Desmos. The only problem with Desmos is it's a paid site. So now this has everything to do with the school. The school has for it, because what we do in my school, we don't use the textbook. Desmos is a curriculum in itself from grade 6 to 8, and it gives us the different topics to learn from the beginning of the year till the end. And that is what we use for our students, and it's very interactive. So I may not give that as something immediate, but kindly check these free sites that you would use in your classroom teaching and learning and see what works for you. And try to incorporate as much in your teaching slides. And before you walk into the lesson, try as much as possible to create something beforehand based on what you found, and then introduce that to your students. So I'm going to type in a few sites that I have used personally, and I believe the rest are going to give more. So yeah, as Felix is talking, I'm going to draft something in the chat.
Well done, thank you. Felix, one actionable strategy that educators can use to increase student engagement.
Number one, and it's the only one, connection. You cannot teach someone who doesn't like you. So on top of the 4 C's of 21st century learning, communication, creativity, critical thinking, and complex communication. Okay, I forgot the fourth one. The fifth one is choice and connection. You cannot teach someone who does not like you. I will say that. The teachers must find themselves being liked. But again, I'm not telling you to become someone who sells ice cream. I'm saying be intentional from curriculum design. Think about your students, like the panelists said, and I'm telling you, the children will like you because it's not about how you look, it's not about how you speak, it's about how they feel when they engage you. Just like Jasper said, they look forward to that lecture where the teacher is engaging. So become part of the engagement by connecting with them. Got to know what are they going through at this time of the year, even including kindergarten. I teach up to that level, including the teens. You know, what do they think about what's happening in the world outside the classroom? And that is a way of connection. C, the 50 C, connection plus a choice, Mr. Ogioko would say. That's what I would say. There are many other things we can keep sharing in our PLNs, professional learning networks. Thank you.
Perfect. Connection. I can't speak any more than that. Excellent. Nisi, very briefly.
One thing I would suggest is movement in class. Long lessons of just students sitting down and listening to the teacher would obviously make them tired. And at one point, they're not even paying attention and they're not engaging in the class. But incorporating movement in class, giving them a chance to brainstorm together on the whiteboard, or splitting them into groups, or let's say give them a scenario and give them a chance to speak in front of the class, or give them options of, let's say, stand this side if you agree to this, or stand this side if you don't agree. Making them move around engages their mind and also gives them a different way of understanding the content and making sure that they're able to understand, and also just making it a fun experience.
Perfect. Sounds more closer to gamifying learning. Perfect. Finally, Dr. Ogioko. Dr. You're muted.
I talked about the 4C, and the first C is provided by the curriculum developer, and the last C is what they take home, the concept. So my advice is the 2 middle C's. Connect the learning to real life. Contextualize whatever concept you're teaching to real life. And then ensure the learning process is active, hands-on, discussion, group activity, problem solving. Make learning joyous. Make learning joyous. I'll say it 3 times. Make learning joyous.
Okay. Thank you very much. Make learning joyous. We are coming from a point where we have been told you can never teach someone who doesn't like you. Perfect. It speaks to the personality of the teacher and of course your approaches to how do you handle those little ones. And of course, this also has got very tight, very, very, very close threads tied to the issue to do with how then will you make learning joyous. You cannot, someone who does not like you, it's almost very impractical for you to make anything joyous for them. Very funny, right? All right, perfect. We have come to the end of this. But before that, perhaps I will take 1 or 2 concerns from members. There is a request from Professor Otunde, who is the Dean of the School of Education at Riara University. If you are still here, Professor, could you please share your thoughts on 1 or 2 things that we are discussing in this team? Professor, are you still here?
Hello?
Unfortunately, okay,
Hello?
okay.
Can you hear
Hello,
me?
we can hear you. Yes, Professor.
Yes, thanks. Let me say hi to Dr. Kyoko, my good friend. Hi, Kyoko. How have you been?
I'm
Good.
fine. I'm fine.
Nice
Very
to
fine.
see you. Thank you. And everyone else, Muhati, I know you. Jasper, I know Jasper very well. Thank you so much. I think this has been very exciting. Just a few comments, Dom Tiller, Nisi, and everyone else. You have had an incredible session, and this is something that if you're doing every Saturday, I think it can shape, and every teacher who is on board can introduce another teacher and another teacher and another teacher. I am an expert in methodology, and all the things that I basically teach has been mentioned here. In a summary, just to quote, and Muhat, you have done a great job. Felix, thank you so much. I listened to you talk about the Samir model, one of the best models that should be employed when you're using technology. That was just incredible. And Muhati, I can say that in a nutshell, that you guys have really delivered. If this can go on like this, then you can transform this country. Just one thought or few thoughts to mention, just to emphasize on what you guys have done, is on when you're using technology or whichever method that you're dealing with, let us ensure that the learners come to class to interact with content, to interact with the peers, and to interact with the teachers. So there is teacher to learner, learner to learner interaction, learner to teacher interaction, and learner to content interaction. And that is what really brings up the conceptualization. And then another thing is that if you are a teacher and you have been teaching, for example, pollination in plants for the last so and so years, and none of your learners is a farmer, there is a problem. Because it means there is no contextualization between pollination and real life experience. You are here and you're a teacher, and your learner has a challenge with sharing, and you're a teacher of mathematics teaching fractions, then there is a problem, even how you introduce the concept of fractions. And so in summary of what I have listened to here and moving forward, teachers should be very keen on the conceptualization part. They should be very keen on that area. Number two, the best way then to start learning is to map the curriculum. You need to get to curriculum and ask yourself, which is this area that would require a project? How long will the project take? And then you set a specific outcome on the project, so that you map up and see which is this will require flipped learning. For example, I'm going to teach physical geography. Surely, I wouldn't go to class to introduce physical geography to students. Or rather, I would do a flipped class, set them onto a task, and then come and present on physical geography. So you see, you run the curriculum in such a way that it is integrated, that you don't leave the learners out in terms of the methodologies you use, flipping the class based on how you have mapped the curriculum. Because much of the things have been mentioned, the issue I would just emphasize on the educators is outcome-based learning. I teach teachers, and the critical thing I tell them, what is the transferable skills they acquire from my class? What is it that when you leave this class, you can account and say, I can account for this transferable skill? And lastly, but not least, learners with learning difficulties. In all the classes we have EBDs, emotional and behavioral difficulties, autistic learners. We have dyscalculia, learners with dyscalculia, learners who have dysgraphia, dyspraxia. All these learners are the ones we interact with in class every day. So the big question you must ask, how do you apply differentiated methods of learning? And maybe my proposal to the team is one of the days I think we can now go through how teachers can be able to prepare outcome-based learning to move from the lowest level to the highest level. Because when the learners leave class, you must ask, are they thinking or they have stopped thinking? We must bring up the strong concept of metacognition, that is thinking about thinking. I know if I asked, say, Nisi now, what are you thinking about? She's likely to tell me, I'm thinking about my family, I'm thinking about my friends. But the big question you must ask, how are you thinking about your friends? If Muhati comes to me and tells me he wants to commit suicide, how do I help him? I ask him, how do you want to do it? Do you want to use a rope? Have you bought the rope? Can I assist? You are pushing Muhati to think how he is thinking. So what I'm saying is that if teachers emphasize on leaving the learners thinking as opposed to leaving the learners say that they have been taught. In fact, If you miss a class and students don't learn, then there's a problem with how we facilitate our learning. If you go to class late and you find students making noise, then there is a problem, because it means students are purely depending on the teachers for learning. And while learning should be a conceptualized and internalized by the learner. Thank you so much. Thank you, Muhati, for even giving me that short chance. I will not miss to join in every Saturday. If you want to find me, Riara University. And just to say, at Riara, we have this certificate in teaching international curricula, which introduces teachers to all the concepts in regard to internationalization of yourself as a teacher. You know, teachers now, we need to start having diplomatic etiquette. How do we even respond to learners? And so that you can be able to go to Europe and you have no challenge. You can be able to be asked to go and teach under the Waldorf School of Art in the US, and you have no challenge using art as a cross-cutting issue. Thank you, guys. We will have to interact more next time. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dr. Otundo. And I actually agree with you on the issue, on the argument. It's a whole new debate on outcome-based learning. We can have a session with that with you in the near future, in the foreseeable future. Thank you for throwing in your weight. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the home stretch of this session, and as Educators Network, in collaboration with STEM Labs Africa, we are saying thank you very much for your wonderful participation. It's already on Sunday right now in India, and wherever Domitila is in the UK, I think it's just a few hours shy away from Sunday. And I want to wish you a very good night or a good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are globally. I would want to welcome Joel Kahindi to give us a vote of thanks, and of course also just say a word of prayer to conclude the session. Otherwise, I really enjoyed the session with all of you. Thank you, Nisi, in Uganda or Ghana, wherever you are currently. Thank you, Jasper. Thank you, Dr. Maina. Thank you, Domitila. And thank you, Felix. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a wonderful moment to have us together here. Joel Kahindi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muhati, for this opportunity. My evening has been awesome and great. I have learned a lot, and I actually can't take it for granted. The panelists have really given wonderful sentiments in regard to the learning and the concept of sharing in the classroom. That, for me, I can't take it for granted. I really appreciate your time, and being here this hour in Kenya is not very easy, considering the fact that we have so many things we do, even for our families. So once again, thank you so much, everyone. And before I pray to end the session, probably we can have our cameras on and take one or two pics so that we can also tell the world what we do matters in the education space. So let's have our cameras on. We shall take a few pics, just get the best from your side, and then I'll pray so that we end the evening session. Thank you. So we can do this in 2, 3 minutes. From my side, I just want to take 1, 2. This is 1 for me. Okay, this is the second one. Right, this is amazing. Okay, so I'm going to pray. Let's believe and pray. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity you have provided this evening. It was indeed a great learning session. Panelists have volunteered to share
and we can't take it for granted. God give them abundance in whatever they do, grant them peace as even when we are just about to retire to bed. Give us the wisdom that we continue doing what we do in the benefit of the students and the entire learning space or the education space as educators. In Jesus' name, we pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Joel. Now, ladies and gentlemen,
Amen.
you can leave. You can now leave at your own pleasure. And thank you for your active participation. See you another time.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful session.
You're most welcome.
Daktari Muhati, how are you?
Yes, I'm very fine. Who is that? Winbroda Nekesa.
Really?